Continuing today's Talking Solutions, I'm your host, Terry Springs. Mary Vail in studio with us now. One of the things Mary told me about recently is Hearts Alive Village, who we just had in. Mary does a lot of charity work around town. Got her book right here called What's Your Philanthropic Footprint? Look at this. You've got Robin Leach himself writing the intro for your book.
Yes.
What's your philanthropic footprint?
When I decided to write a book about philanthropy, it's not a how-to book. It's not you must do book. It's kind of a book to help you evaluate your own self and maybe what you're doing out in the world. Sometimes people think that they have to do a lot to be considered a philanthropist. And then some people just don't understand what it means, the true altruistic meaning of doing philanthropy work and stuff. So it's kind of just an inspirational book to help people move on. I've done a lot of philanthropy in my whole career, in my whole life. And people would ask me constantly, why do you do it? Who inspired you? And how can I get involved? And I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of people is, I want to do something, but I'm not quite sure. So I just thought, our footprints in the world, our social media footprint, whatever kind of footprints that there are out there. I never heard anybody talk about the philanthropic footprint and what you're leaving behind, your legacy, or how you're inspiring others to get involved.
The title of this show is Talking Solutions, and I always put out there every week ways we can all be of help. This is obviously the sort of thing that we need to talk about. Mary, I think we should also let people know your background.
I do public relations. I have done that my whole life, it seems like, since I was, a young teen. I was introduced to it, not even realizing that I was doing it. The same with philanthropy. It just kind of evolved into what I was doing in my life. And when I started my business and really getting involved with public relations and really representing people, I made a mandate that anybody I represented must do some type of community activity. Whether they already had a program that maybe wasn't really developed or they didn't have anything set up, I would find a way for them to be involved. Something that would really resonate with them as an individual, with their company, so it could be sustainable. I didn't want it to be a one-time off sort of scenario. I really wanted them to put their heart into it. It's been wonderful. My clients have all gravitated toward the concept, and those organizations that weren't willing to do that, I just said, I'm sorry, I'm not the person to represent you. You're welcome to go find somebody else. I was very, very stern about it.
When I met you the first time a few weeks back, when you brought in Joe Vasallo, who is the president of Paragon Pools, you and Joe had worked together and you'd come up with the idea for water safety drowning prevention called Float Like a Duck, which I love so much.
Oh, and that's a wonderful program. And look, we've celebrated 12 years with it. Touched a lot of lives and reached out to people across the nation with this program. And that's the key to it. And he gets very wrapped up in it. And he gets very excited about it because he knows how important it is and he really puts his heart into it.
You talked also about some of the companies that you work with and you find some kind of a charitable pursuit that fits what they do. The fact that Float Like a Duck works with pools and water safety and the person that you put it with is president of a pool company. That's a wonderful match. You can look at it as a success any day that you don't hear about a drowning.
Oh, absolutely.
Because prevention is key. So not hearing about it is actually a sign of success. I love that interview, and it was my chance to meet you.
Thank goodness it's on YouTube because we're able to pass it around to a lot of places.
It's out there.
We've listened to it several times and very proud of that interview. So thank you for having him here.
Thank you for coming up with the idea in the first place. If you hadn't come up with it, I wouldn't have been able to have you guys in to talk about it.
And that's part of the fun. When you do public relations, sometimes people have a misconception that you're just there to promote them so that they can sell their goods and services. And that's not my idea of good public relations. Doing PR for a client and being their publicist means that I'm going to share important information to the consumer to let them know that maybe this is a service that they could use, maybe these are products that they could use, and why it might be helpful to them. That's the value of really good public relations and sending the message out.
I also appreciate, as I'm sure a lot of people do, the kind of company that cares enough about Las Vegas to not only be here to offer their services to do a good job, but also to do good work within the community. That's the kind of company, when I see the good things that they've been doing, chances are I'm going to go see them because they think like I do. They care about this city the way we do.
Absolutely. And, as it turns out, several of the companies who came to me and said, we want you to represent us, when I told them that we needed to develop some type of community activism as a part of the program, and they said, no, I don't need to do do anything. I'm just here to sell my products. The bottom line is those companies aren't even here anymore. So it just tells you a little bit about their mentality. And I think that's a key element of who they are and what their values are. So if I establish my values and I say, this is it, this is what we're going to do, help me develop something for you, and they're not willing to go there, then you kind of have an idea, this is definitely not a person that I want to do business with, nor do I want to share their business with the community. And who knows how they'll treat people if they have that type of attitude. How will they treat the media when I take them for interviews? To me, that says that they're saying it's all about me, 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 me.
I'm not a me, me, me person.
And not about how we can help others.
It's the bigger picture.
It is.
It's not just looking at what I can get today for myself. It's opening up and giving back.
And being a part of a community.
Yes. And I love this community. No doubt you do as well. Mary Vail is with us today, author of What's Your Philanthropic Footprint? Practice that.
It's a mouthful, but it makes people question.
It makes sense. What's your philanthropic footprint? You do PR work.
I do PR
and
work.
have for a long time. How did it morph from doing just straight PR into this bigger effort?
The two were side by side. As I was growing up, I grew up in a very small town, Kingsville, Texas, home of the King Ranch. Maybe you know of King Ranch Trucks. That's the city, Kingsville. Very, very small town. My dad was a chiropractor in the town, but he was very, very involved in the community. Lions Club, Boy Scouts, Knights of Columbus, just everything that there was to do in the community. He was always there. And of course, there was always fundraisers to try to build support for different organizations. When I was a teen working in my dad's office, and this is really going to date me, it's so funny. He had one of those old typewriters. No correction tape, nothing.
The IBM Selectric wasn't even out yet? Is that what you're saying?
And I was a little kid, and he handed me a press release that was from the year before. And he says, all I need you to do is retype this and change the date here and here, because it was the annual barbecue that was raising funds for some activity in the area. So I was doing that. The two started from the beginning. I was doing PR, sending media releases to the local paper about a charity event. So the two began together. And for some reason, that just continued on forever.
Sharing with the community and giving back was part of your growth process.
Absolutely. And he would have all these different activities to go to. And I felt so elated and honored when I got to go with him. For me, it wasn't like, oh, I have to go do this event. It was like, oh my God, I get to go with my dad and we get to do this event or that event, carnival, raise funds for Lions Club or whatever it was. I was always excited about it. Or we had to bake cookies or cakes for cakewalks, if anybody remembers what those are like.
I do, from grade school.
Yes, right, to raise money. And it was always about helping other people. So the activities that I'd participated in when I was growing up were always charity related, helping others in the community. And my dad was phenomenal. He would take people in and help find them places to live. He would give them odd jobs. He wasn't about somebody who just wanted to give a handout. For him, it was all about pride. And he knew that if you just handed somebody something, that they would not feel as much pride in the activity as if they felt that they had earned it. And this would inspire them to keep going towards that means. He helped so many people. He was really, really a remarkable man. And the city just embraced him with such warmth, and he loved them all back. It was truly amazing.
Put you on a positive path from childhood.
Yes. There were 7 kids. My mom had the challenge of taking care of all of us. She was an at-home mom while he was the doctor in the small town, as well as doing all these other community activities. She supported her way in allowing him to go out and do these things and, of course, participating in a lot of things. But he was really, really a motivator, an incredible leader. He founded a Boy Scout troop in our city. I'm not sure, but I think the longevity almost lasted 50 years.
I smiled when you were talking about your mom raising 7 kids and how she didn't have an outside type job. And I've always laughed when a woman will say to me, I don't work, I've got kids. Okay, if you've got kids, it's 24/7, baby.
Right.
Not only are you working, you don't ever get a day off.
Right.
So.
For her to manage that and run us around. Imagine all the different activities that we had, the different schools. She's a remarkable woman. I dedicate my book to my dad and my mom and some other individuals who have had a real impact on my life. The book has some of my family history in there and stuff like that.
Raised in a small town in Texas.
Small town.
How did you end up getting here?
When I was going to college, 15 hours from graduating, my dad shunned this, but he was so disappointed. I met a gentleman going through the Flight Training Command at the Naval Air Station, and boom, it just happened. He said, would you leave with me? And I was like, yes. I left school, left my town, and within 6 months we were married. This this year, we celebrated 35 years being married.
Yay!
So obviously, marrying somebody who's in the military, you travel quite a bit.
Sure.
Our first duty station was Hawaii, and he had promised my dad, he said, don't worry, I'm going to make sure she finishes college, because college was important to him too. He had gone to the Naval Academy. So I was able to go to the University of Hawaii and graduate there before we had left. Got my degree there, and then back in Kingsville, my hometown. Then we went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which was an incredible experience to live there. Then to California, back to Hawaii, and then when he retired, after several tours in Hawaii, we said, let's go to Las Vegas. We just chose it. We like tourist-centric towns. There's always something to do, something exciting. And 20 years ago, the town was just rising up.
Oh, yeah, I
right?
remember.
It was
Absolutely.
very exciting. So we came here. But all along that journey, whether I had a business or was working someplace, I was always doing philanthropy work. I was always involved.
I feed off of that. That's why I love doing this show, Talking Solutions, so much.
Oh, it's great, yes.
Mary Vail is with us today, author of What's Your Philanthropic Footprint? You've always been charity-oriented. I noticed your PR efforts when you were doing the food drive, Scouting for Food with the Scouts.
That event actually occurred because of a different food drive. It was about 18 years ago. It's right after we first moved into town. I'm always helping my client get involved in something. So I needed something for myself, something that I could hang my name on, and said, okay, Mary, you need to go out and do something that's yours. USA Weekend magazine, they were putting on a program called Make a Difference Day.
Yeah, it's in October.
The fourth Saturday. They don't ask you to do a lot. They just say, do something in your community, which is right up my alley. Just do something. I thought, I want to do a food drive. And I had worked with the Salvation Army on numerous other activities. So I reached out to them and I said, for your food pantry, do you encourage people to do food drives on your behalf? And they said yes. So they were the beneficiary, and asked them what their stipulations were. How do we go about managing this relationship? Because when you work with a nonprofit, you do need to understand how their organization works and the items that they need. I think that's really important, is building that relationship and having that conversation. So I have my beneficiary. I have the theme, a food drive. Now, what is the easiest way for somebody to be able to donate food? At that time, you would hear a lot about, at this baseball game, bring some cans of food and you can get your ticket free. Or there was cross-marketing. But I was thinking, you can go to a food store. Let's do something at a food store. Jump back 18 years, and there was none of that activity at food stores. They didn't allow people to be in front of the stores asking for donations or sell items. At that time, they definitely didn't have the jar at the counter where you could make donations. Now it's so prevalent. There's 2 and 3 groups in front of grocery stores, but back then it wasn't a common practice. So I had reached out to numerous major food stores and said, I'd like to do this sort of thing. I was rejected, because they didn't want anybody intimidating their shoppers. They thought that it was inappropriate. Well, Smith's Foods and a wonderful lady named Marcia Gifford, who's still with Smith's, and she worked with me for 15 years. She said, I'd like to do this with you, but we need to make sure, number one, that we don't impede on the people who are coming in to shop. We don't want to make them feel intimidated or uncomfortable coming in to shop. I said, no problem. We'll figure this out. At that time, I was working with some local celebrities and asked them to come in and be celebrity guests. Just come in for an hour and greet people as they came in and ask people if they could pick up some food while they were shopping. So that was the easy factor, just pick up some food. Well, I even made it easier, and it was all about one can. We asked people if they could pick up one extra can of food while they were shopping, and they could drop it off on their way out. That's not asking a lot of somebody, but what it did was it stimulated in their mind, sure, I can pick up one can. It was very, very rare that they came back with only one can.
They would have gotten a lot more than one can, I know it.
I wasn't asking them to write a check for $10. I wasn't asking them to give cash, because what I didn't want to do, a lot of people are nervous about just giving cash to somebody who's asking for money for an organization, because they don't know where the cash is going. They don't know if somebody might be putting it to administrative work or in other pockets and not going to what they intend for the money to go to. I wanted real items. I wanted non-perishable foods that could go on those food bank shelves. The people who needed them could walk in and somebody could eat. A family could have food on their dinner table. So we started that whole one can sort of thing, and it was amazing. This food drive went on for 15 years and won a national award, which gave us a $10,000 cash grant.
That's a lot of cans of food.
for the food bank.
That's wonderful.
Is that incredible? I mean, to be recognized, because there are thousands and thousands of programs all across the U.S. that are put on this very same day. And they recognized Las Vegas for its efforts and supporting this. And it was incredible. It was really, really remarkable. The only challenge with Make a Difference Day is that it is only on that one day.
Right.
So if for any reason you can't manage your project on that day, it doesn't become part of the program. Last year, it would have been the 16th year. And there were some challenges with holding it on that day. But over the years, as you've seen, you can go into grocery stores now and people are doing food drives. They're raising money for the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or whatever. So there's a lot of activity going on. But the Boy Scouts here locally do a food drive that was 2 weeks after the one that I normally did. And one of their main stores was that same Smith store that I held mine at. So I thought this year I'm going to support the Boy Scouts, which was one of the organizations that my father was endeared with. So I reached out to them. They said they definitely needed help. They needed help with PR and getting the message out. So I was able to use my talents, and the beneficiary again was the Salvation Army. So I was just able to lend all of my efforts that I had previously done and pass them on towards the Boy Scouts. It was very, very rewarding, and I think that's how you heard about myself and my involvement with the food drive.
Yes.
So thankfully, the food drive continues on through the Boy Scouts and their food drive. They make it really easy for people, too. They pass the yellow bags out. I think it was like 2 weeks before at your door, little door knockers.
They come through your neighborhood, leave the little bags for you to put the food
and
inside.
You can just put your food in it and leave it there, and then they come back and pick it up. And that's the genius about creating fundraisers or events that you want people to be involved in, is you have to make it easy for them. You have to stimulate something they can take heart in, but it can't be too complicated.
And that's one of the things that I want to talk about, too. We've got Mary Vail in with us, author of What's Your Philanthropic Footprint on today's Talking Solutions. I believe that people really do want to do something to make a difference. But many times, outside of doing a few cans for a food drive or something, all of which are beneficial, wonderful programs, there are more things that they can do. They just don't know how to get started helping.
That is true. I address this in the book. There are a lot of people who come to me and say, I wanted to get involved, but I didn't know. I think it's the scare factor. It's like, how much time am I going to have to put towards it? Or how much money is that going to cost me? They put up obstacles before even trying it. I had a woman, she interviewed me for a radio show someplace, and she said, I really want to help the elephants in Africa because they're being mutilated and killed for their tusk. I said, oh, so what are you doing? She says, well, I can't go over there. And I thought, yes, but there's so many other ways to do this, you know, especially with the internet. There are organizations that she can help fund or support or provide all types of means to. Plus, you also have a lot of organizations, zoos, research institutions here, rescue facilities that maybe have some elephants involved with them here locally or something like that. Just reach out, talk to people, find out, you know, is there any programs here? You have the internet. All you have to do is Google something and boom, it pops up, you know.
Sure. Put in how to help elephants.
There's all types of ways that people can be involved. Organizations are always looking for volunteers. We each have our own talent. Thankfully, you have this. You have the radio. You have this means of giving information out. And that is extremely valuable in spreading message about any type of topic that somebody might be concerned about, or letting people know about fundraisers or whatever's happening in the community. My talent of doing public relations is getting that information to you. And I have a lot of people who contact me all the time and say, we need help with this event. We're not selling tickets. We're not doing this. We just need the message to get out. And they didn't have somebody on staff that could do the PR work, so they'll call me up. And all this work that I do in PR, and just to be open up front, I don't get paid for it.
No, this is charity
I don't
work.
Programs that I set up for my clients, I don't charge them that time when I'm working on those projects. I separate the two. While I'm working on strictly PR for them and their company, it's one thing. When I'm doing their philanthropic program, there's no charge. I don't count hours. There's no fee attached to that, because I want them to give, and I want them to know that I'm invested in what they're doing for the community and stuff.
Well, you take them by the hand. You talk about something that will work, that's compatible with maybe their company's focus, a charity that they have a deep, heartfelt connection to, something they'd like to make a difference with, and you go with them every step of the way to help them do those charity efforts. And it's all giving back. I find that the more I give, it fuels upon itself. It's almost an addictive kind of substance inside you that says, giving back and seeing the results, it feels so good. You just want to do it again.
Some people call it the helper's high.
I like it.
So if you want to get high on a natural stimuli, it's about helping other people. But sometimes these activities take a little bit of time time to help work out. It's not going to be a magic second. I might meet up with 2 organizations and get them together. And then as you progress a little bit, you realize that maybe the philosophy of one organization doesn't necessarily promote how the other one wants to work. You might have to cut those ties and find a different partner. It does take time and effort and energy, but it's a snowball effect. And what's funny is you might get one person involved in something. Then you hear of somebody else who needs to somehow be involved, and they get involved, and then they get somebody else involved. And now before you know it, you have this whole lineage of people doing different activities, but all coming together to be a part of something. And, it's just amazing. One of the biggest challenges I have every day when I'm driving around is somebody standing on the corner.
Which we all see.
That kills me. I want to cry. For whatever reason, they are there. Whether they truly need the help, which you don't know, or if they feel that this is their way of just getting money and not having to work.
And you don't know what it's going for.
Either way, that breaks my heart. And I struggle with it constantly. So working with the Salvation Army, they were really helpful. And one of the individuals there that I worked very closely with, she kind of helped explain to me, give a hand up and not a handout. So if you can help them out of that situation, you are doing more good for them than if you just hand them the dollar or hand them $2. Get them out of that situation. Each of us will have to come to terms when we get to that corner and there's somebody standing there that's got a sign. And how we deal with it is definitely an individual reaction, and nobody can judge anybody. You don't want to judge the person who's standing there, but it just breaks my heart to think that they are standing there for whatever brought them there.
Yes.
This happens all over the world. I graduated from UNLV in their EMBA program, but our international trip in December of 2013 was to South Africa. I had a wonderful experience traveling with my cohort mates and learning about business and economy and life in another country. And when they took us to the townships and they took us off the bus, before we got off, their ambassador there, who was going to take us through, said, when the kids come up to you, do not give them money, do not give them gum, do not give them candy, do not give them anything. You can play with them, you can shake their hands, do whatever, laugh with them, talk with them. Do not give them anything. We are trying to teach them that you have to work to get something. So that same philosophy is everywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. Don't ask for a handout. But the kids were adorable. All they wanted to do was talk to us and ask us about America and get their pictures taken with us, and they were absolutely adorable children.
You've had some interesting life experiences.
I've had a lot of interesting life experiences.
We've got Mary Vail in studio, author of What's Your Philanthropic Footprint? And we're talking about giving back. I'm so convinced that people really do want to make a difference, but we're all busy. We don't have a lot of time. We know that we don't have $3 million to endow to a foundation to just take care of some stuff for us. So the question is, how do we get started? Do we look within ourselves to find out what our passion is? Where do you want to help? Is that one of the first questions we should ask?
I think definitely if you see how people get involved with activities, and I have a lot of discussion in my book that is thought-provoking. Why do people get involved with different organizations? Is it because there was a tragedy caused by something? Somebody dealing with some type of sickness, and so now you become involved in maybe a cancer organization or different types of health-related organizations. There are a lot of stimuli. If you're an animal lover, lean towards those types of organizations. I don't know if people know that the shelters, they need people to walk and play with the animals that
interact with the animals, so they're not just sitting in a cage.
You're not having to obligate a lot of money or food or time or adopt them. How about just go there and give these animals some love? There's a lot of ways of not necessarily being obligated for a long period of time, but you can give back. They also look for people who can come in and take pictures or can help groom the animals that are there. There's a lot of ways that people can be involved. It's just a matter of looking in your heart and finding out those things. I've never been a fan of garage sales. I always thought that if these things, if they really had value, that somebody else might be able to use them. I always would ask my friends, do you have any items that you were going to put in a garage sale? Can I have them? Because I'm going to take them. And I recently was able to deliver this huge carload of clothing, very expensive clothes that somebody had grown out of, and taken them over to the Veterans Village. They were all pressed and beautiful, carloads of them. If the item has value, somebody else who maybe doesn't have the means to purchase it but could use it, let's give it to them. Goodwill, the Salvation Army, you have a lot of different organizations who have them for sale, and or they give them to the people that they work with and stuff.
Exactly. And there are so many groups. Assistance League has their store as well. There's just a ton, and they all help so many different groups. Years ago, I was moving back to town, and I had boxes and boxes, and they put it back in my house here. And I'm looking, I'm like, wow, this house already had a lot of stuff in it, and now I just brought in more. And I thought, if I have something in my possession that someone else will get more joy out of, it's my obligation to give it to them. Since that point in time, that's kind of been the way that I work my life. I haven't done as good a job of it as I would like to. I still have too much stuff, but it's the mindset that drives me to do that.
Yeah, and there are so many ways that people can be involved. I don't remember how I was introduced to Street Teens some years back. It's an organization here in town. It's a place for these teens who've maybe been abandoned or, as they call them, thrown away. They help them with all types of things, maybe getting their IDs and their birth certificates and get them settled in and help them with education, getting back in the school system and living and stuff. I was introduced to them and I was doing some work with them. This is funny because, like you said, once you're involved with something, you see other opportunities and you jump on them. Joe Vasello with Paragon Pools, his father-in-law, who was in his 90s, was a seamster. And he was making all of these cute little bags for his family out of just scrap material. But his mind was very, very active. So when he was done making some bags, he'd go in and tinker with the electricity, which at 90, you really don't want somebody doing that, right? So we came up with ideas. Maybe he'll make some bags for the street teens, right? To give them, because the little plastic bags that you get from the store,
those don't last.
They don't last at all, right? So this way they could put their clothes in it. So Joe gave his father-in-law this assignment. We have these kids. Can you make some bags for them? Because believe me, all the family and friends that had more bags than we needed.
Because he's going to make them anyway.
He's going to make them, absolutely. Now this became this obsessive passion with him. Obsessive. I talk about him in my book. He just wanted to make more and more and more. Then somebody else heard that we were making these for street teens. Somebody else said, do you think he'd make some for our kids with this group or this? And he started pumping these things out. He became so obsessed with this that he bought an extra sewing machine. He was spending his own money. He didn't have a lot of income, buying thread, buying Velcro. And then one of Joe's friends who had materials for interior designers, she said, we're throwing all of these materials away, these sample squares would feel like these, so he won't have to buy.
And they're already cut.
Yes. Now he had all this patchwork. She would bring bags because they were out of stock or they were old designs or whatever with Diana. She would bring bags over to Phil. It just became this huge process. It was amazing. And he would just piece these things together, stitch them together, and then, can't remember the name of the organization. They reached out to me and they said, look, we have foster kids and it's Christmas time. We would like for every child to have the exact same gift. So there was close to 100 of these things that he needed to make. And at that point, he was making bags and then had made beautiful patchwork blankets that would fold up and be in the bag so that the homeless people or whoever it is would have a blanket in a bag when it was cold out. I said, Joe, do you think Phil would do this? And he was like, oh, absolutely. For these kids, I'll do anything. There was a short deadline. The sewing machine breaks. Oh, Phil, didn't matter. They had to buy him another sewing machine because in his mind, he had to do this for these kids. He had to fulfill this order for these kids. My daughter had made these Christmas tags that said, made especially for you by Phil Whelan, a 90-year-old seamster. She tied those on with ribbons. And Phil loved those tags so much that his family went and had, like the name tags that you get on the back of your clothes?
Sure.
We had name tags made exactly like that.
For the little bags?
For everything. And now one of those were sewed into it. He ended up making, oh my God, thousands and thousands. And organizations would come to us and say, could he make some bags for us? Salvation Army Food Bank, they were like, oh my gosh, because these would last. You could put things in there. And just the response from people, even street teens, some of the comments that were made, how they felt that somebody had made this for them.
Somebody cared.
And how important a purse, a bag was for somebody who's out on the street. It's their only possession. This is where everything in their life is in this bag. It's just heart-wrenching. That was a whole series of people like, okay, well, I can get involved and I can get involved. And he continued to make those, and it was very, very cute.
I just don't think there's anything better you can do in the course of your day than make someone else feel special.
I have a huge passion for this. Huge, huge passion.
We wanted to make sure that on today's Talking Solutions that we gave you the information and the opportunity to join this giving community, because once you get to be part of it, you always get the bounce back in a positive way for helping somebody else. And you find that as you get involved in that here in Las Vegas, there are so many people who are also willing to help. We just need to find the spots where they can serve the best. What's your passion? What do you want to give? You want to give money? Well, great. I'm glad you have money.
Organizations can definitely give money. And, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about philanthropy, a lot of people preconceive this as it's about writing big checks. But it's about big hearts. That's all it is. It's about big hearts, because those big checks would not be written if it weren't for a big heart. somebody cared enough. Somebody said, this organization needs this money. I'm going to donate this. But there are so many other big hearts out there that can give in so many special ways.
We really can all make a difference. What's your philanthropic footprint? Inspirational book?
All the proceeds from the book go to charity.
Of course, because that's
go
you.
to charity. So even just purchasing the book will benefit somebody.
You're giving back right there.
You're giving back. There's a lot of ideas in the book, links to different organizations for their websites.
I'm going to make sure that I put the links on our Talking Solutions Facebook page, how to get a hold of your book. Inspirational, get you involved in giving back. That's what today's show is all about. I've been needing to get this off my chest. Giving back is so important. Mary Vail, thank you so much for joining us
You're welcome.
today.
Thank you.
Are you ready to work on your philanthropic footprint? Mary's going to leave a book for me to give away. And if you'd like it, all you need to do is send me a message. You can go to our Talking Solutions Facebook page. We could fix you up. Talking Solutions is a production of the Community Relations Department here at Beasley Media Group Las Vegas. Get more information on today's topic on our Talking Solutions page on Facebook, where you will also find links and a podcast of today's show. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.